Hello and welcome to the Unamerican Football Show, our weekly prediction episode. Another week is in the books and we'll take a look back at what we got right, what we got wrong and what we got incredibly wrong. And we'll also have a look at the Week 8 action which is coming up as well. In the studio today we have our current predictions leader, it's Ross Crawford. How's it going?
Very, very well, as you can imagine, being the predictions leader at the moment. This was actually one of our better weeks because I think as a team, as a podcast, as a group of humans, we were terrible last week. So it's always nice to get back on the horse, as it were.
Yeah, I couldn't have gone much worse last week. So sorry for letting the side down last week, but I wasn't that great this week either. Obviously, we'll go into that in a minute. Probably have to mention we are down one team member today. Nate's feeling a bit unwell, under the weather, and hopefully he's on the mend, resting up in preparation for Sunday so he can watch his Colts play. So obviously we send all the best to you, Nate. Hope you're doing right, buddy. So let's have a look back at the past week. So Thursday night we had the Broncos. They played the Browns in Cleveland and the Browns won 17-14. Nate and I both backed the Broncos and got that wrong. Ross, you nailed it. You got the Browns and a one-score game. So you get the 2 points there. So nice job. Then Sunday, 6 p.m, we had the Chiefs and the Titans in Tennessee. The Titans were backed by yourself, Ross, and by Nate. And I backed the Chiefs, which now looks incredibly silly because the Titans won 27-3, which is...
it's another one in the list of a few blowouts and games that were predicted to be quite close in the last couple of weeks, though, to be fair. We had the Chargers-Ravens game as well, which was super weird.
Indeed, yeah. Then moving on to Sunday, 9:25, we predicted this to be quite a close one. Falcons-Dolphins. Falcons won 30 points to 28, and the Falcons were backed by Ross, yourself again, and by Nate. I backed the Dolphins, and you're just 1 point each for both of you guys there. Sunday night football, Colts 49ers. We all backed the Colts, which pleased Nate tremendously, and the Colts won, which made me even happier, despite not feeling too well. So, didn't get the spread right, but we've got teams, so that was good. And then Monday night football, that was an interesting game. The Saints 13, the Seahawks 10 in Seattle, which is a bit of a strange one. Nice and low scoring. And we all had the Saints, but none of us got the margin on that one. So again, a point all round. The top fantasy scorer from the 5 games, Nate went with Derrick Henry. I went with Jonathan Taylor. And Rossi went with Alvin Kamara. And Alvin Kamara was the top scorer from the 3 games. Well done. You join the league's roll of honour for getting the top player in a week. So, top job. Any comments on the games? Any
rather exclusive club of 2.
It is.
In theory, unless we have any more guests that come on the show or we change hosts and get rid of me or get rid of me anytime soon, which is very possible, there's not many more people can join the club either. So, Nate, you're really gonna have to pick up the slack here and get in amongst it.
Yeah.
But no, I think the Saints game. You said it was an interesting game. Naturally, I was very pleased with the outcome. Not really sure. Don't really mind how we get there. And that was definitely one of those instances where just any way you can, because that Seahawks defense that has been notoriously terrible the last couple of seasons and specifically this year, all of a sudden were galvanized and had a lot of energy on Monday Night Football in the old clink. And it looked like a bit like the Seahawks of old on defense. They were running around all over the place and making it tough for us. But Alvin Kamara kind of saved us. A lot of receptions. He was the leading receiver on the day. He just played really, really well. And he's quickly becoming the face of the franchise then in New Orleans. So it's good to see that he's performing on a big stage in the national spotlight.
Yeah, he basically was the offense. He was rushing, he was receiving. Be interesting to see how that changes if and when Mike Thomas comes back. But yeah, I think you're completely right at the moment. It's hard to look past Alvin Kamara for that offense or the face of the franchise. Definitely. It's definitely not James Winston. I'm not entirely sure what he's adding at this current moment in time, but there's worse out there, I guess. I just want to pick up on two of these quick ones super quickly. That Dolphins-Falcons one, I actually thought that I was going to get that right. And then, of course, the sort of last-second field goal from the Falcons won it. So that pleased you guys, not me. And the Chiefs, my goodness, what a letdown. After busting out when I said I was going to go with the Chiefs, they score 30 every single week. Well, they got 3 in it, but it was just 3. So I'm going to put this down to an incredibly bad week because
it was such a weird game. Tennessee were they 27 up at halftime, and then 24 up at halftime.
Yeah,
didn't need to
sort of area,
and then the Chiefs kept driving the ball because they were so far behind. They would lose the ball and turnover and downs quite a lot. And Tennessee just weren't having it. They just weren't having it on defense all game long, and it's a real statement game for them, especially after just beating Buffalo as well, who are supposed to be another AFC powerhouse. So look out AFC because Tennessee are rolling at the moment.
Yeah, that's definitely something we'll be picking up a bit more on the weekly podcast. So let's move on for the sake of the prediction show. So just to recap on the points this week, I got 5, which is 5 times better than last week. I guess I take that as a positive. Nate got 8, and Ross, you got 9. So credit where it's due. You got the correct winner in every single game, and you got the fantasy scorer of the week, which it's nearly, without getting the score margins, it's a perfect score. So well done, buddy.
But that's the thing. I've got a lot of flack in this show for not picking the wild cards as often as you guys do. But I picked 3 road teams on the road in games that were predicted to be very close. And the Browns were always going to win at home because you don't pick bad football teams. I don't know what you guys were thinking there, but there's definitely been a few thrown in there where over the last couple of weeks where like the Ravens have beat the Chargers and you guys both picked the Chargers, and I've come up trumps in some differential game picks.
Yeah, I mean, I had reason for not picking the Browns. I picked them nearly every week going into last week, and but
you never picked them against the Broncos, so it's like
that is true. That is true. Anyway, for our current standings, Nate is catching me up on 37. I'm on 39, and Ross, you're on 54. So there's generating quite a gap now. Maybe I need to be a bit safer with some of these predictions, or maybe not. We'll see. Looking forward to week 8. It is week 8, right?
It is, surprisingly, already.
Yes, good. I know. This would have been halfway through the season last year, but not yet. We've got plenty more to come. Let's look at Thursday night football. We have the Packers at the Cardinals down in Arizona, Friday, 1:20 a.m. We do have Nate's predictions as well, so I'm going to lead off with those in this one. Nate's gone for the Cardinals. He expects a 24-31 scoreline to the Cards, and he just thinks the Cards are going to roll a bit further before losing. They're going to continue with this win streak, and he's just about seeing them win here by 7. Myself, I'm also going for the Cardinals as well. I think it's going to be a little bit wider gap this time. Reason being, Cardinals at home, undefeated. Jamal Adams has just hit the COVID list for the Packers. He is vaccinated, but he needs to have 2 negative tests between now and Wednesday, and that's sort of the drop-dead date because he'd have to travel on his own to Arizona if that's the case. That's just such a big loss for them. Can you trust the wideouts of Valdez-Scantling and Lazard? Admittedly, has scored a touchdown in back-to-back games, but who's the one? The one probably is Aaron Jones, so he's quite an interesting pick from a fantasy perspective, I think, this week. But I think the Cardinals, they've just got too much on offense. They've been better on defense. I've gone for the Cardinals to win 20 points to 34. And what about yourself, Ross?
Clean sweep. I'm picking the team that has a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. In fact, their defense at this point statistically is better than their offense in terms of rankings in the league. I think they rank 4th in yards per game allowed, which is probably the big surprise with the Cardinals. Is we weren't sure how J.J. Watt coming in and returning Chandler Jones, who hasn't been a big threat, but he exploded in game 1 against Tennessee. So he's been a factor. How they were all going to gel with the likes of people that are already there. Marcus Golden, you didn't think how much he was. How is a 30-year-old pass rusher going to offer your team too much in pass rushing? And he picked up 2 sacks each of the past 2 weeks. So they're actually getting a little bit from everybody on defense and actually performing like a proper unit down there. So yeah, you're going to pick the top 10 offense and the top 5 defense at home on Thursday night, regardless of the opponent, regardless if it's Aaron Rodgers. I just think they're going to be too hot. They just have that magic about them at the moment, Arizona. It's difficult to pick against them at the moment.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame actually about Devontae Adams potentially not playing, because this is sort of a bit of a, it's a bit of a marquee game for the NFL in 2021, and to have a weakened Packers offensive unit is a bit of a shame. So, yeah, I think you're right. Cardinals seems like the obvious pick. Do you want to roll on
I'll
to our
finish. I think
one?
I've still got one score game for Arizona. I think it's 24-20, 24-21, so Nate knows exactly what my score is when he's editing this, and it's from his sick bed later on, I think, because he's still very much the editor-in-chief despite his illness at the moment. But yeah, speaking of Nate and his Colts, they are the early slate of games, and with the clocks changing this week, we actually have them on a little bit earlier on Sunday at 5 p.m, which is a weekend I always enjoy.
Lovely.
Tennessee are traveling to Indianapolis in AFC South clash, and this is a massive game, more so for the Colts, I think. If they win this, then that's them really right in it again. Whereas I just don't know if I see it against Tennessee. I think we said earlier they've made their statement in back-to-back wins against Buffalo and Kansas, and I'm just going to have to pick Tennessee to make another statement here and just kind of assert themselves as the division powers for 2021. Doesn't mean the Colts can't get back into the wild card race, but I see Tennessee winning this one in a bit of a barn burner, 34-28. Similarly to some of the games we've seen in recent years from Tennessee and Indianapolis, I think it could be a real back and forth contest. Derrick Henry will probably rumble for 200 yards, as he seems to do against all AFC South teams at this point, though. So I've got 34-28 Tennessee in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I'm of a very similar thought to yourself. This Titan team, they've seemed to flip the switch. They've turned it on. They've won some big games in the last few weeks. It's hard to imagine that only a few weeks ago they lost to the Jets, and I find that staggering. But I think the growth over the last few weeks, the Colts are definitely a big challenge for these Titans. They're at home as well, but I just fancy the Titans to get the job done. I've gone 28-24, so not a million miles away from where you are, either one-score games for both of us there. And Nate, unsurprisingly, he's backed his Colts, which I don't blame him for. I think we think it's going to be a close game. He's got the score being 25-28. He says he's not sure about this, with both teams improving in the week, and the Colts' defence has put in some drastic improvements, and they might just blow the division wide open here, which we were talking about just before. The Titans are very good, and it's 100% heart over head. He doesn't care. He says, hashtag, fuck the Titans. So, see, Nate is here in spirit. Moving on, Sunday, 8:25, we've got the Washington football team against the Denver Broncos. Maybe not the most glamorous tie of this slate. I do think it's one that is an interesting one for us to try and predict, because I'm not really sure what either of these two teams are. I think they're probably both below average, but it could make for an interesting game, which is why we've gone for it. And it's safe to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers again for another week, because let's be honest, they're always on Sky anyway. So Nate has gone for the Washington football team, and he expects the score to be 15 points to 12. Wow, that is very, very, very low. He's backed the Broncos last week, he says, and it was a mistake. And it won't happen again. These suckers suck. He is not wrong. They do suck. And the Browns' second team, a lot of second stringers, really showed off how weak this Broncos team is. And for that same reason, I've gone for the Washington football team as well. I've gone for a score of 22 points to 17. Don't get me wrong, I don't love this Washington unit on offense or defense either. The defense has been a massive letdown. The offense does still have some fire. I think Heineke pulled off some good running plays last week. They've still got Terry McLaurin. They've got sort of this now sort of slightly two-headed monster with Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick in the backfield, while Gibson struggles with a fractured shin. Is that what it is? It's some sort of shin injury, which he continues to play through, which seems foolish. But you can run on these Broncos as well, and I think that tandem is going to be the defining factor for the Washington football team in this one. The Broncos could be lifted by Jerry Jeudy's return, but I'm not sure the quarterback play is really to the level where we're going to see significant improvements from the Broncos this week against Washington. So, yes, 22 points to 17 Washington.
I feel like I need to redeem myself to the Denver faithful. So, after slating them last week and continuing to slate them a little bit at the beginning of this show. Purely because actually that's not even true necessarily. I don't believe in picking bad football teams. It's just the fact that we've got two bad football teams here, so I'm going to pick the home bad football team. And what I actually decided for me, I actually just looked at the quarterbacks and seen who threw the most interceptions this year, and Taylor Heineke's thrown the most interceptions this year. So that checks out for me. He's going to throw a couple more interceptions on Sunday. Patrick Surtain's going to pick one off, take one to the house, and that's going to be one of Denver's scores that's going to win the game. 17-13 to Denver.
That may be true, but he's very conservative, Teddy. And as the Simpsons once said, you don't win friends with salad.
But you do win it with defense occasionally. So
do either of those teams?
No, but they had Denver have a slightly better one, in my opinion, at least this year. Which is very surprising for what we've seen from Washington. All right, I'm sick of this game. Let's get on to a good game. I'm sick of this game before it's already happened. Yeah. Like that's not a good sign of a good football game coming up. But I think the Sunday night football game is going to be a very good football game because I think the Minnesota Vikings are a little bit misunderstood this year. They've been a little bit up and down, but Jekyll and Hyde as well. But that offense, when it's rolling, can compete with the Dallas Cowboys offense in my head, which is why. So with Dallas Cowboys traveling to Minnesota to take on the Vikings, I've got Kirky Cousins going off on Sunday Night Football because it's not Monday Night Football. To the score of 34 points to 31 Minnesota in their building, because Minnesota are just phenomenal in their building. I think that crowd is just brilliant in Minnesota in that beautiful stadium they've got over there. And I just think that offense is going to get going against the Dallas defense. Trayvon Diggs has been phenomenal this year. You know how much of a fan I've been of Trayvon Diggs over the past few weeks, but I just think Minnesota will have. This is going to be a coin flip game in the fourth quarter. Never mind before the game starts in my head. So I just see it playing out that Kirky Cousins leads down the Minnesota offense in the last few minutes and wins the game for them. Doesn't mean Dallas aren't going to play well. It's just going to be a case of Minnesota having the ball last and win the game, at least in my head. So I'd be interested to see what you think as a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, I mean, this game does worry me a little bit. You know, it gets the nerves tingling already, and it's only Tuesday, so that probably says quite a lot about the matchup. I think you're right, the Vikings are a bit misunderstood. I think the things they do well, they do very well, but I think a lot of things they don't do very well, they do pretty bad at. And I do think there's going to be points scored, and you've reflected that in your prediction as well. The Cowboys, they got a lot of things wrong in the game against the Patriots, and they managed to squeak through. The offense managed to pull them, despite the penalties, through to the win in overtime. And I'd like to think, with the bye week that's just passed, a chance for some guys to come back healthier. You might get the return of Michael Gallup as a third wide receiver. You still have the likes of Cedric Wilson, who's actually played really well the last few weeks. He now slips down to a fourth wide receiver, so I just think the offense is going to have a little bit too much for the Vikings, but I am scared by the likes of Dalvin Cook because I still don't love our rushing defense at all, and I definitely think there's people to be picked upon at cornerback as well for the Cowboys. So I do think there's points here, but I think the Cowboys outscore 28 points to 20, and I'm not sure if that's close enough. It might be optimistic, but I could get 2 extra points if I'm right. So I'm taking the gamble on doing the wider spread and hoping that the Cowboys have been able to right some of those wrongs from the past week or 2 weeks ago against the Patriots. And the Cowboys have been one of the most penalised teams in the NFL. I think they're second or third. Hopefully they can have corrected some of those things. Dak will be back for spending his time in the pool. The boot's off apparently, so he should be good to go in Minnesota. And to mirror your point, I'd love to go to the Minnesota Stadium. Yeah. It looks awesome. On to Nate's prediction. He's also gone with the Cowboys. He loves a bit of Dallas, to be honest, this season. He never doesn't happen. He's gone for 18 points to 35. He says, Cowboys, move on. So, okay, maybe it doesn't work. Monday Night Football. Oh, you'd think this would be a mismatch. Giants at Chiefs, Tuesday, 12:15 a.m. Chiefs have been struggling. Nate says he thinks the Chiefs are going to win. 21 points to 24, just a 3-point spread. He says Danny One Hand, which I'm not sure is a nickname I'm familiar with, but Danny One Hand will drag this bad Giants team to a narrow loss to this bad Chiefs team. So what?
I like the coined term.
Yeah. Got a coined term somewhere. I've also gone for the Chiefs because I think they've got to get back on track at some point, and the corners have been playing poorly for the Giants, but they have still been able to put up some points here and there despite all their injury woes on wide receiver. Dan Jones has been having a decent season, to be honest, considering everyone flailing around him. He's had concussions and everything, so I think the Giants will be fine in this game. The Chiefs, they should be licking their lips at this game, at home, at Arrowhead, against a team that's really struggling this season on defence. Kelsey and Tyreek Hill and Mahomes, they're sort of modern triplets. They want to get them guys firing. I think they've been poor rushing recently, and I think that's probably where they struggled last week against the Titans. So they're actually a little bit susceptible to the run. But I think they're going to air it out, try and put up a bit of a statement score. I'm going back on my theory that they always put up at least 30 points. And I've gone 17 to 34.
Nothing like blind faith in a football team that's not been playing well for the last.
Yeah, right. Just keep it going. If I just say it every week.
It's all about the confidence in your delivery in the predictions. So I go very, very specific so that when one of them comes right, then everyone has to bow at my feet, basically. But Danny One Hand, I'm not sure about, but Danny No Dimes makes more sense in my head. But that's not something I can necessarily say after his performance against the Saints, to be fair. He's not been playing terribly bad, as you allude to. I just think the Chiefs, although they've struggled this year, they've beaten bad teams fairly handedly. They beat the two of their wins came against Philadelphia and Washington, and they scored 42 points against Philly, 31 points against Washington. The teams they've struggled against are the likes of Baltimore, Chargers, Buffalo, Tennessee, who I think we all see as playoff teams, which puts into perspective where we think the Chiefs are. Okay, so they're not an elite team anymore, but they still get close games against potential playoff teams who might be those elite teams. So I think they're still going to be in the running towards the end of the year, and their schedule lightens up a little bit in the next couple of weeks, a little bit. And this is one of those games on Monday Night Football against the Giants. I'm sure ESPN will love the New York market coming in to watch Danny No Dimes throw the ball all over the yard into Chiefs defenders' arms. But we'll see. So I have the Chiefs winning this one 28 points to 10. They get rolling again. I think it'll be a little bit of a weird game. Maybe they'll get a defensive score or something. But I think this is one where the Chiefs are actually against another NFC East team. And they beat them quite handedly, I think. So I've gone with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think there's nothing quite like a nice schedule against the majority of the NFC East to try and boost your, your overall win column for the season. Great. So we've all gone for we all started on the same page and we all ended on the same page. It's nice. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes down with the points. Top fantasy point scorer from the 5 games. Let's go with Nate first, and then we can have a little bit of a chat afterwards. Nate's gone for Kyler Murray, Thursday night superstar. He's hoping for when they take on the Packers. I'm not gonna lie, that did cross my mind as a potential. For me, I've gone for Tyreek Hill. I was just bigging him up. He's goes to this bit of pattern where he has a couple of average weeks from a fantasy perspective and from a real life perspective. And then he has a game that sort of wins you a week. And I think this is a perfect one where the Chiefs got embarrassed last week. They're going to want to throw it. They're going to want to take the Giants to the cleaners. And I think they're going to be looking long for Tyreek Hill because they can. against this Giants defense. So I've gone for Tyreek. And who have you got, Ross?
I actually like the Hill pick. I think you're right. I think he was quiet for a couple of weeks and then he absolutely goes mental. So I like that. The guy I'm going for is from the Minnesota-Dallas game. And in the spirit of choosing Minnesota, I'm choosing a guy that's had a very consistent year after a standout rookie year. Which in a lot of people's minds could have been the rookie of the year for the historic performance he put up as a wide receiver. I'm going with Justin Jefferson, which is a little bit of a random one. But if you look at his targets for the year, he's gone 9, 10, 11, 7, 8, 14. You know he's going to get his targets from Kirky. He loves Justin Jefferson. I love a little bit of Justin Jefferson. And that 14 targets came in the last game against Carolina, where he went for 8 receptions for 80 yards. I think he's going to get a lot more targets against Dallas. Adam Thielen's going to take up some attention from Trayvon Diggs. I'd like to see Justin Jefferson go for a couple of TDs in that high-scoring game that I've predicted.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick. I love it myself, a bit of Justin Jefferson too. There's a lot of players I like on this Minnesota team, so hopefully I won't be enjoying their performance on Sunday/Monday, but yeah, there's definitely a lot to like about some of these core players for the Vikings, and Justin Jefferson's always one of those players that I think, I'd like him in a fantasy team. I don't think I've ever had him on any league ever, but
it's just he's not quite had those really, as you mentioned, fantasy.
The ceiling's not quite there.
But he's not had one of those fantasy winning weekends that he did have a couple of times last year yet. And I just think on Sunday Night Football is a perfect opportunity for him. So if he doesn't take my advice and have a 200 yards couple TD game, then he's missed an opportunity there. Are you staying up for the game, I imagine?
I probably will. The time change is actually not particularly helpful for that one, because almost 1 a.m, if I'm awake until 4, I'm a bit like, I'm sort of up now. But going back to bed at like 3 feels a bit of a weird time. But I'll probably go to bed and get a bit of a power nap before, and then if I wake up sort of half an hour into the game, I can sort of fast forward the adverts and the Game Pass. So yeah, I tend to at least see the second half in real time, which is probably a better way of doing it. You know, combine the sleep and just stay off Twitter.
You've done this before.
And Discord.
You've definitely done this before.
Oh, I have, yeah. And the Cowboys just get too many primetime games.
True.
And with and often they don't get many 6 o'clockers. A bit like the Saints, just because of their locality in the US, they get more evening and primetime games, I guess. So yeah, I'll be staying up. I'm hoping for a bit more of a relaxing game, like it was against the Eagles, than last time against the Patriots. But either way, I'll be up, hopefully enjoying it. And yeah, this is definitely one of the harder games coming up, I think, for the Cowboys. So yeah, it'll be a good one. You know, it's looking like a good slate. Last week I was looking at the games thinking, not ticking many boxes for me here, but there's definitely some interesting, intriguing games coming up. You know, got those teams back off buys, the Bills, and
I agree.
The Steelers are a bit of a weird one.
Week 7 was weird in the early slate of games I was watching, and then the game that was most intense was Miami in Atlanta. And you're thinking, I can't really get into this that much, despite the fact it did have implications on our prediction show. Yeah. It felt a little bit dirty getting involved in it a little bit, and getting emotionally involved in it a little bit too much. Yeah,
I agree. Anyway, let's round it off there. I think we're looking forward to another week of action. As always, for you, the viewers, I hope you enjoyed the show. Drop us a comment, a like, subscribe, do your thing. And also please check out our podcast and other shows, which can be found on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, Spotify. Basically anywhere that you can listen to podcasts, we're there, as well as our previous shows on the prediction side on YouTube. You can also find us on Twitter at @ToughShowOfficial, or you can come join us in our Discord community. So that can also be found on Twitter as well, or through the link on the video below. So Ross, thanks very much, and look forward to speaking to you again soon and looking back at how we did.
Yep. Hopefully I come out on top again.
Let's hope not. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Bye.